What's up, everybody? Welcome. We are going to get into it. We are right on time. My name is Robert Linkle. Very nice to see you all. Appreciate you all being here. How is audio and everything sounding on your end? Everybody feel good, sound good, thumbs up? Let's get a little comment in the chat as well. Let's see if everybody, let me make sure the chat is on. Panel, everyone there, and everyone here. Okay, go ahead and throw into the chat for me where you're joining us from. Make sure that we have some opportunities to connect with you there. And chat or Q&A, we have Keeg SoCal. What's up, Cindy? I know exactly where you're at. Hi, Gina's on here, and we have Jocelyn from Ontario. Awesome. Tucson in the house, Julia. All right, let's get into this. Canada. Nice, Wendy. Excited to have you all here. I love our Canadian crowd. We have so many awesome TOA members from Canada.
This woman's name is Janine and spelled the exact way my mom spelled it.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, the J9, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the only way I remember it. Very good. All right, everybody. Well, we're going to get into this. The chat is open. The Q&A is open. We've got the Keeganator over here. She is writing panel assist on the side. So if I need anything looked up, I will look to her as my Joe Rogan Jamie, and she will get us info. And if you have any questions or need anything as we're going, feel free to comment in there to her, and she'll be able to assist you as well. All right. A couple of things first. I am not an expert on menopause. I am not a woman, nor have I paused. I have had never stopped talking. This is an area of expertise-ish coming from a male perspective of working with a lot of female clients who have gone through menopause. So that's where I feel good about bringing you this material is I have a little over 20 clients that I have been working with for 15 plus years. I would say that, I don't know, maybe 50 to 70 years of age, somewhere in there, let alone a lot of the other clients, 8, 10, 12 years as well that we've worked with. I've had a lot of experience in this area, and with the mindset of applying research, applying the application of what I'm going to show you on here, along with our experiences, I think we have some really good guidelines for you to get some actionable information that you can utilize with your clients. I have we call this the 5 tips. There's really 6. There's 3 outlines that I'm going to give you, and then 3 applications that I'm going to give you. And I think the applications are probably going to be the most valuable. I think it's all good information, but I think the applications will probably be the most valuable things of how to specifically work with this demographic pending the perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause phase that they're in. So that's pretty interesting. Also working on one training through pregnancy that we're going to do in a couple of months, probably early next year, first quarter, somewhere in there as well. So I have some information for you along the way. But if you haven't seen this, we saw this Very Well magazine, the special edition. This is an actual magazine. That's not just an image I found. Actually, I think I had it right here. Really great resource. I was really impressed with it. With the amount of research-based content that we kind of look at, finding something that is on a countertop at a Safeway or a Raley's or a Bel Air, etc. It was really nice to find something that was actually researched and pretty solid. So if you want to find something that's a little less researchy and still has some good stuff in it, check out that Understanding Menopause magazine. It was really good. If this is your first time seeing me speak, just a little background on me. Master's degree in personal training. My bachelor's degree is in kinesiology and strength and conditioning. I've been doing this as a personal trainer since 1999, specifically focusing on older adults since 2009. And have had all kinds of great opportunities with the NSCA and with FitBody and FitBody Bootcamp, FitBody Forever, since 2022. So my lovely wife, Keegan, and our 2 little ladies there, one cold, one that wore a sweatshirt and was not so cold, one of my favorite photos. Our agenda for today as we kind of move through this, and again, questions are in the chat or in the Q&A section. Feel free to fire away. The agenda, we're going to look at understanding what, menopause is, talking about it out loud, etc. We'll get into the perimenopause signs, the menopause signs, the post. We will talk briefly about treating. What I mean by treating is not like, what hormones replacements, treating with what we do as far as implementing resistance training. So that's what I mean by treating the symptoms. We will help with the process of understanding how to incorporate fitness into the average individual's life going through this experience, why resistance training is so beneficial, and at the very end, we'll give you some really good pieces to kind of plug in as we as we go and work our way through here. I love it how you always eat every time we do one of these. Last time she had like a big plate of spaghetti or something, and just sit here and wish that I could come over and snack away with you while we're talking. But somebody's got to chat. All right, here we go. Quick. This is a great article. Again, very researchy, but it's really, really good. I just served with Helen Binkley right here, the author, and her sister. There's another Binkley on here, I think. Maybe this isn't the one. Her sister co-authored another article with her. They probably have 5 or 6 out there. Helen is awesome. And the materials that they've created from a very base entry level of like just what are the basics, which is this one, all the way up to some of the really more advanced strategies of resistance training, and then HRT, hormone replacement therapy. You'll see that acronym used quite a bit as we go through. Really good research on that. Helen's one of the more expert individuals on this if you want to find more info on it. But in this article, they give us kind of a time of each stage as you go through and some basic instructions. So I want to give you some opportunities to see just some definitions if you want to try to put some numbers to it. Remember, there's early onset and there's delayed, and there's not everybody's going to fall perfectly into, well, you're 40 to 45, you're in early stages of perimenopause, etc. This just gives you some guidelines, okay, of some reference points that you can go through. And I would say this is probably one of the things that I found most interesting was this is no longer a topic that is taboo or is uncomfortable for most people to speak about. I would say for young female trainers or male trainers, this is just something that you need to have the understanding of. We're not going to understand what that means to go through this. Guys, we're never going to experience. As I did my research for this, Richard Gere and a whole bunch of other actors, apparently there's a male menopause, completely different thing. Basically, it's another explanation for midlife crisis, which changes with the body and the mind. Very different for the ladies. But the reason I put that on there, fellas, we're never going to know what this experience is like. And young female trainers, you're not close enough to experience it other than maybe being around other females that have. But kind of keep that in mind when you're discussing this with your clients. Why I started the webinar the way that I did, I don't know what this experience is like. I can only read so much. So I'm going to do my best to be empathetic and be able to connect and be able to work with my clients. But again, I don't know. If you ask me what it's like to have a hip replacement, I know that experience. I've had that 3 times. But again, without going through these, it's really difficult. I can read as much as I can, but I'm not going to know exactly what other people are feeling, et cetera, as we go through that. So empathy is a big part of this. Showcase your knowledge for sure about menopause. There's certifications and different courses you can go through where a lot of the courses are pregnancy through menopause, and they'll have both of those together. There's a ton of research on it. Client success stories, always sharing that with your current clientele is a very good strategy and route to go as well. So they know that you've been successful working with people previously and going through this process. There are some typical stereotypes of, well, if I'm going into menopause and I'm going to exercise, is that not going to make me hotter or more uncomfortable, etc.? We're going to go through, like, if you can give good research explanations why that is false, and I'm going to give you all that info here in just a moment, that earns more credibility for you. Okay. So these are opportunities you want to take not only to learn about this, think of it almost like, oh, my client is going to have a hip replacement, or they have a bad back injury. I need to research it. Think of it the same way. It's not a disability or a disease or an injury, but it's another stage of life that we need to be armed with the experience and the education to be able to help our clients through it. Give them an overview and let them understand what's going on with the resistance training program, how it will change and what modifications you're going to need to make, why there will be some days where you'll say, If it's a group training session, you're all doing A and I'm going to ask you to do B. They don't feel like they're being separated or pulled out for any reason other than, hey, the stage in life right now, I want to make sure that we're not damaging or hurting you or making you as comfortable as I can, etc. Explain that to them ahead of time so they don't think that, they're doing something wrong or that they're being treated any differently. And then discuss why it's beneficial, especially with the resistance training component, I don't know if I can say it enough, like how important resistance training is to the perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal female. All 3 stages. It was like the number one thing. Well, other than in postmenopause hormone replacement therapy, other than that, it was the number one thing that assisted in helping regulate all of the lists of symptoms that they were experiencing. So it's almost like the hidden secret. And that's where, number one, talking about it, Drew Barrymore, you see all these folks. This is Jenny Garth. Do you all remember her from 90210? Yeah, she was on there. And they were showing some pictures of her from like late 90s, early 2000s, no muscles at all. And then I saw her here and I'm like, yo, like girl found the weight room. And she said she didn't start until she was perimenopausal. And I said, this is fantastic. Like, you gotta understand that I won't jump the shark. I'll show you. But it's very difficult to put on muscle mass at this later stage in life without some assistance in terms of hormone replacement. And then leave time for questions. Like leave time for them to be able to ask you questions and go through. Again, we're coming to them as their strength coach / personal trainer. So if they're asking like, what are my estrogen levels supposed to be, like, I have no idea. Like that's not what we're here for. But if you need to know, hey, if I'm having a hot flash, what am I supposed to do? And what should I say? Or, you know what I mean? Like whatever they're going to need to go through. And you guys can just have some separate conversations about that. So they're armed ahead of time. This can be rather uncomfortable. I remember my mom going through this and, it was a very challenging situation, for us. And she did not exercise, which I think would have probably helped quite a bit. Another article that you'll see here, exercising beyond menopause, the do's and the don'ts. So these are a couple of the, topics, these common misconceptions. So let's dive into some of these. The first one, strength training will make you bulky. That's fiction for sure. Strength training leads to increase in muscle tone and overall strength. I'll show you more information on that in a second. Cardio is the best thing to do. Also not accurate. There is a part of cardiovascular health that we want for our aging populations and for all populations. But as we're aging here, just like if you were just looking at this saying, this is a 55 to 65-year-old man who's never lifted weights, my first concern would be he's under-muscled and hasn't had enough stress placed through his bones to make sure his bones are dense enough to help him maintain posture as he moves through life. It's almost, without saying menopause, old man, and seeing the list, the demands of what they need are almost identical. The symptoms are different, but the demands of what they need as far as the treatment goes to help them in the weight room, almost identical. So really, we shouldn't change a whole lot. It's not like, well, they just need to do cardio and try to lose body fat and have a full focus on, having a negative caloric intake at the end of the day. That's not the case. You can cardio yourself to death. That's not going to really change a lot of the symptoms. We need a hormonal response in the body, and that's where the challenge of resisting and moving load and changing your glucose levels through your musculature, all of that is really, really important. So, muscle mass maintenance, if not gain, if possible, super important. And then the last one here is exercise will worsen your symptoms. Absolutely not true. We'll talk about that a little bit too as we dive in. All right. So that first one, if I start to resistance train, I'm going to get bulky. I won't be as flexible, and am I going to get hurt? Right? Is that correct? Absolutely not. This is one of the most false comments or questions that a client can make. I just got off a call, one of our FitBody calls with Barrett, and he said some awesome information that 38% of communication between people is done through tone, and 55% is done through body language. So if they ask you this question and you go, no, that response right away is going to put them on the defense. Where if you go, yeah, I totally understand where you're coming from. That's understandable. And I know that's a common misconception, but let me talk to you about why this is kind of a different focus that we have and the battle with sarcopenia and why this is going to be beneficial. Rather than just right out no, it already puts up walls. And so how we are talking the tone in which we're talking, our body language, all this is going to help us in these situations too, to make sure, even though this is very common and it's a misconception, we've got to break that. And that's where you've got to come with facts and just be able to explain that, to be able to slowly kind of tailor this topic and discussion the way that you want. You have a chime in?
I mean, it was a little bit of a chime in, but it was a micromanaged chime in. That's
okay. All right. So incorrect or false comment. Sarcopenia is the loss of muscle mass and function, as we know. Sarcopenia occurs naturally with age unless we resist and strain. Now, when I put that statement up, people go, well, it's automatically, and we're going to get weak. I understand that. To become sarcopenic, you get to a point where you're classified as weak. That is not an acceptable fate. Like, that's not something you just have to say, that's going to happen, right? We can combat muscle mass loss with strength training as we build our way and go through our life. If we continue to resist and strain and keep our heart and our lungs in good shape, we ideally should live very well and maintain enough muscle mass to do all the things that we want to do, not to lose function. Will you still be able to deadlift 400 pounds like you did when you were 30? No. But could you still deadlift? Hell yeah. Look at Bert Soren's dad, right? Bert Soren's dad, Richard Soren, just passed away. Rest in peace. He deadlifted, I want to say 700 pounds on his 70th birthday, if I'm remembering that correctly. That guy never took a day off in his whole life. He was constantly resistance training, did not accept his fate as, I'm a 70-year-old man, I have to be, walker bound and slouching, etc. So this is 100% incorrect right from the get-go. We can combat and battle sarcopenia. Maybe we should put him outside. That was a bad one. Utilizing that, it's really bad. Sorry, our dog is just letting him go in here. How professional we are. We're all friends here. All right.
Talking about body changes. This dog
Boy,
is going through
yeah, he is. This is a rough one, buddy. All right, HVRT, high velocity resistance training, high intensity resistance training, and eccentric, also known as time under tension, TUT training, is ideal for maximizing muscle strength and endurance. Now, keep those acronym initials in mind because those are going to be part of the menu that I'm going to show you later on. Muscle mass retention is the key to maintaining your quality of life, 100%. And practicing flexibility is the way that you maintain good flexibility. What I mean by that is, and I talked about this a little bit in a previous webinar earlier this week. When I was younger, I was doing Taekwondo, 8 until 13. I did flexibility training every single day, and I could touch my toes and I could do the splits. As I went through puberty, I stopped all my flexibility training because I got into throwing and the discus and the shot put and playing football. And so just the emphasis was not much on flexibility. However, if you look at, what's the gymnast I was talking about? What's her name? Simone Biles, who's 28 years old, which is very, very senior in that sport, still is the best athlete in her sport on earth and just proved it once again at these Olympics. Look at her flexibility. She's doing the splits, laying her face and her chest down on the floor. She's extremely flexible because she's continued to practice what she did pre-puberty, through puberty, post-puberty. So if we continue to practice skills, we will keep them. It's when we stop practicing them that we will lose them. So to answer the question, will I get too bulky? Absolutely not. Especially females. You don't have enough testosterone in your body, even in your prime, to get too bulky. You may add more muscle mass, but that's, in my opinion, a good thing. But especially at this point where we're perimenopausal, no chance. You barely have enough estrogen to be able to maintain and keep some muscle mass unless we get into more resistance training, which then creates a higher surplus of hormonal response, which aids in this process. So the more you lift, the more muscle mass you can gain, and until you get to postmenopausal, where you're probably going to need some type of hormone replacement therapy, if that's the goal, is to get more musculature and or build more muscle mass in bone density, etc. So if we're looking at that as, well, we're going to get too bulky and get inflexible, that's not the case. And the last part, am I going to get hurt? On average, the average individual who quote unquote lifts weights, that means resistance training of some sort, on average about 6% of them experience an injury in any given year. Now, if you're performing time under tension or escalated density training, I know I didn't put that one up top, but you'll see it later on, EDT, escalated density training, 4%. chance in injury. So it's a really, really safe way. Mind you, football was 14%, lacrosse is 37%, female soccer was 47%, like injury rates in all these other sports through the roof. Okay. And so resistance training, 6 and 4, come on. Like it's a super, super safe thing to participate in, especially if you're on guided machines, etc., starting off. All right. Bone growth and muscle mass, these two pieces overlap really, really well. So you're going to hit your maximal muscle mass, and mind this chart and how you see it, because you're going to see it again here on bone density. You're going to hit your maximal muscle mass right around 35, 40. And then perimenopausal bone softening is going to occur right around 45 to 50. So you're just kind of getting to the top of your curve and we're starting to come down. Menopausal bone density is going to start to degenerate at a greater level. And then when you become postmenopausal, your degeneration at that point can start to lead to higher amounts of pain. And by what I mean by that is arthritis, osteoarthritis, neuropathies, different injuries based on you don't have enough muscle mass and your bones are getting really, really soft. The reason this is an important part about a menopause talk is you remember the hormonal response aids in all of this. So if we're seeing just a natural muscle loss, and this is average male, female, you can imagine what the just pure female loss is. And then when we get to a menopausal state, how much greater that's going to drop off. So if I had to look at like one population on earth and say, you had better be resistance training, it would be 55 and up, number one, all women, number two. Those are my two answers. The guys, we could probably get away with not resistance training until 40, 45, to be honest. But I'm looking at 18-year-old ladies. I'm like, you better start resistance training. We have a friend in her late 20s, early 30s that was just diagnosed with osteoporosis. We have another friend, the teacher, our teacher friend, Peyton's teacher, that, what's her name? Why am I blanking? It doesn't matter. She's like 28, 29, osteopenia, right? And so we're seeing this at but individuals that sit all day, don't resistance train, don't eat well, way low on protein intake, etc. All this feeds your lack of muscle mass and your bone softening. So these are great concerns in following this. And then notice as you start to lose that muscle mass, what creeps in here is that threshold for lower performance that ultimately leads to the disability threshold. So we will see women in their late 40s, early 50s enter the disability threshold. Can you believe that? That means they need someone else to help take care of them or an aided device, a cane, a walker, a crutch, a wheelchair, etc. And that, you might hear that and be like, no, it's more common than you think. And those numbers are rising, okay? We just came out of a 2-year pandemic, basically, where everybody had to kind of stay at home and resistance training was not top of list. So everybody came out of at least 2 years of that way down on the charts. So imagine the comeback we have to have from that is quite dramatic, okay? The misconceptions here continue. If I have osteopenia, osteoporosis, I shouldn't resistance train because that'll increase the opportunity for me to break bones. That's absolutely false. It's actually the medicine. This is what's going to help you overcome your limitation. Now, if you have never lifted weights and you're 55 and you're like, I'm going to go do a boxing class and punch bags, and then I'm going to do jump rope, and then I'm going to run downhill, and then I'm going to do snatches, probably a lot of your bones are going to get damaged and broken because that's all super high impact stuff. But if you just go, I think I'm going to start resistance training on the selectorized machines, I think that'd be a great place to start. I'm just seeing here that my volume is super high. Okay, is that better? Does that seem not so loud?
You're always loud.
Okay. I get all ramped up and I see that. I was like maxing out the charts. Sorry if I'm cracking mics and speakers at home. All right. So the osteoblast, they are the bone makers, and they are going to do their little battle with the osteoclast, and all that response is going to be due to the demand placed on the bone via the load in your hand. So again, encouraging, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, encouraging your clients to lift is super high priority. But if they can start working with some of these tempos, which is the HVRT specifically and the ECC, the eccentric training and the high velocity training, they're going to get a ton of progress from that, like quite a bit. So the key to that whole saying is the progressive overload. They can't just jump into the deep end. You got to baby step this up, or else, yes, you will increase the risk of injury. But if we slowly progress them and work their way up, there are studies, and as I'll show you in just a moment, of 80% or more of 1 rep maximums being the ideal load for females in their 40s to 60s to build muscle mass and bone density. That's a lot of weight, 80% or more. I rarely have my clients lift that much weight unless it's a projected 1 rep, which we will hit with higher volumes, but not in singles, not like an actual 1 rep. So there's research to support both of what I just said. An actual 1 rep, 80%. So that means if my 1 rep is 100 pounds, 80% of that is 80 pounds, right? So I would have that client lift that 5 times, but 1 and then rest, 1 and then rest. So that'd be 5 singles. Or you could do 40 pounds for a set of 10, and that would also equal an 80-pound 1 rep, right? It's a projected 1 rep, which ultimately gives the same amount of work, but doesn't place as much stress on one attempt. So if your clients are not capable or not trained up to the point of doing heavy lifting like that, there's still a way to achieve this. Actually, the preferred way, in my opinion, okay? And then the main takeaway there is progressing accordingly with these compound lifts are really, really key parts to this, all right? I'm going to turn and burn through this one because I kind of talked about it a little bit with the muscle mass. But if we took that muscle mass chart and just laid it right over this, okay? Keep this picture in mind here real quick. Let me zip back and just, there it is here. See that chart up right around 35, 40, okay? And then same right here, 35, 40. It's almost identical. These go hand in hand. I have yet to meet somebody that is adequately muscle massed and they have osteoporosis, or that has really dense bones but super weak muscles. They're sarcopenic. They go hand in hand. If you have adequate muscle mass, good grip strength, proper posture, 99 out of 100 times that individual is going to have strong bones. Okay, so if we know these correlations overlap, we're going to 2 birds with 1 stone this thing for sure as we kind of work our way through. The softening, all the same thing kind of coordinates right along with the same path of the muscle mass. When we look at what to do, what not to do, okay, last slide here on common misconceptions and what this article kind of goes through. This is that do's and do nots that I showed you before. Basically is postmenopause women should avoid the high impact aerobics, should avoid high fall risk activities, and they should avoid trunk flexion based movements, excessive spinal loading, etc. And they kind of go into this in terms of our concern is the bone fractures. As they get more years of experience lifting under their belt, of course you can do more of these things. But if you're just hey, I'm 65 and I'm just going to get into fitness for the first time ever because I'm experiencing, well, let's say 55, I'm experiencing my perimenopausal symptoms and I think I'm working into menopause, you should probably start with light resistance training, light aerobics, etc. Stuff where you are staying on the ground and it's not super high tempo and it's not a ton of load, and progress into this because yes, the results of those are going to assist you in aiding through that process, but you're also building a better frame so you can do harder work in the future, which is what your postmenopausal body is going to need from you, right? That's why early detection of menopause is really beneficial. So like understanding the signs and symptoms, which I'll show you in a second, of perimenopausal period is that period, that stage is super important. If we can recognize it at that point and be like, let's get you lifting, let's really start to encourage you like at least 1 day a week where we're lifting really hard, 2 would be ideal. But if we could do that, it's only going to help you in the long run. Okay, postmenopausal women should also avoid overtraining, overworking, and ignoring the signs and symptoms of fatigue and overuse. Now, and then under protein consumption. The concern with that third bullet point, ignoring the signs and symptoms, basically what the research study found, I want to say there were 1,600 or 1,100, there were 2 different studies, I might be confusing them, of people that participated in this, and the older ladies at this point just decided, I just have to do this, and I just have to keep pushing forward because I need my body to get better. So they ignored a lot of the symptoms. They ignored that they were tired and fatigued, and they did not want to give themselves days off. So they just pushed their way through. They just pushed their way through and ended up experiencing an injury, having something that set them back further than had they taken a rest day or 2 to assist in that. And then some of the other concerns here, they talk about unstable angina, that's chest pain, uncontrollable arrhythmias in your heart, myocardial infarctions, heart attacks, etc., and just paying attention to the cardiovascular system. as much as I'm harping on the idea of like, you got to lift weights, that's where the HI or the HR, the high intensity components of these come in, is like, that's where you're going to get your cardiovascular health. A true strength and conditioning program builds both of those pieces together. You're not just doing LSD, long, slow distance cardio, 50% base running, flat rate the whole way. Nothing ever changes. And, or do a set of reps, 10 reps on the bench, and then I wait 3 minutes. And then I do another one and I wait 3 minutes. Okay. We want to have some bases, some undulations, some tempos that mimic that beep, heart rate, beep, spike, return. We want that for them. All right, balancing the hormones. In your 40s-ish, you can see where that perimenopausal period, things are going to start to trend down just a little bit. And then in the 50s, again, these are broad numbers, okay? In the 50s, it's going to start to change quite a bit more, and you're going to see specifically your estrogen levels start to taper and your testosterone levels start to taper quite a bit. When we become full menopausal, those numbers are going to start to drop drastically. You see that in the later stages here, 45 to 50, right around in there. You experience your last menstrual cycle, and then you're into menopause. At that point, 60 on. Again, I don't know the experience, but based off the statistics, emotions and body response and sleep and thinking and quality of life and everything is going to be a mess. And so that's where at this point, like, we need as much regulation in the body as you can, and being able to push your body to certain intensities through workout regulation. When you push yourself hard in a workout and then control yourself back down for the 10 years prior to this, when these moments come up of hot flashes and sleep deprivation and brain fog and everything else, you actually have built in some defense and some ability to help regulate this through your resistance training patterns. Yeah, babe.
I wanted to just, with this, and I was hoping you were talking about the balancing of hormones, I think it's important to point out, as like leading up into this, setting yourself up for success, in that when you have an increase of stored fat in your body, those stored fat cells, there's like 3 different types, but one of them is going to produce excess estrogen. And then that from that excess estrogen that those fat cells in your body are producing, it's going to tell your body to store more fat cells, and then there's that vicious cycle that just continues to do that. But I think that aids a lot in this really big imbalance that we see in a lot of young adults that think they have, I know that all of our hormone levels vary, but you tend to see someone who's going to have a very rough menstrual cycle, very big mood swings, very heavy flow, all of those, it's going to last long, it's going to be irregular, all of that. And they're going to typically, again, this is all very generalization, but be somebody who is not in greatest of health that they could be in. So lower body fat, great cardiovascular system, eating good foods that don't have hormone disruptors and all the things we're seeing in our environment
dyes
today.
And process.
But starting yourself out with a good healthy body fat percentage and is key to that, because now you're entering this stage of your life with, sitting right next to you. Yeah. Entering your stage of this life with a body that knows how to balance its hormones versus relying on fat stores to release estrogen and throw it out of whack. And if you're somebody whose weight fluctuates a lot, now you have a spike and increase in estrogen release because you're up your weight. Now you lower your weight, and now it's more regulated. So I think that is something to really think about, is leading up into this and working with your clients that aren't in menopause yet to get them into a very great, healthy lifestyle, so that when they
35 to 45 window,
even almost lower than that, because obviously, if you want to talk about, babies, reproduction,
motherhood,
fertility, and all of that stuff is all about regulating those hormones, right? And so setting yourself up, really just having a very healthy hormone life throughout is very important, but leading into this with that really good body fat percentage to not have extra estrogen.
Great point. Yeah, great point. Thank you, babe.
I do have a question over here about examples of exercise things to show at the end.
Okay, you got it. The trunk one? Okay, yeah, I'll get there. Awesome, thank you. All right, and then No, I'm going to just kind of briefly, no, it's okay. I'm going to briefly discuss this hormone replacement therapy, HRT, as you'll hear this. If you want more information on this, send me some messages, because I've got a gal, Katie Coles, that we work with FitBody, and then another gal, Stephanie Poplinsky, that I work with, the NSCA. Both are like, this is their area of expertise specifically, is this. But basic research on this was looking at supplementing in estrogen. The U.S. started to do this grand scheme with everybody in the 1990s. The UK was doing it, 40 years, 30 years or so before.
I would argue that the females, it's 50-50 whether your doctor's going to think it's good or not. It is just now being accepted as a safe practice, even though it has been deemed, there was like one really crap study that they put out that they said this is really unsafe for you, and everybody bit and hook, line, and sinker to that,
and they all bailed off of it.
Uphill battle now to get your doctor to think that, but it is increasing.
Yeah, as Keegan, if you guys don't know Keegan's story, she has BRCA2, ovarian cancer, breast cancer gene, and then had her ovaries removed, a full mastectomy, and a full hysterectomy. And so all of our experiences talking with doctors going through all this, we heard many different opinions both ways. But her doctor is an absolute stud on this content. And we all, through our conversations went through this. And a lot of the information she actually gave me, I'm presenting to you in here, was discussions on this. Because right away, I was like, I want to make sure all the research that I have found really encourages females to utilize a very small amount of testosterone as they go through and kind of make this transition. In Australia started doing this in the early 2000s. The U.S. started to do it in the 2010s, where it's more of when I put these dates on here, I mean more of a very common practice. There were single offs, one offs, all this way before these dates. But to the point where a large chunk of people are utilizing this, there's very, very good research to support the use of both estrogen and testosterone replacements. It's not, number one, not for everybody, and there are very different results. So, and absolutely talk to your doctors about any of this first. Just be armed with the information that these are things that your clients, as they're getting close, you may want to discuss with them and just let them know, like, here's from my understanding, number one, these are going to be things that I think might be, beneficial, or at least talk to your doctor about some type of hormone replacement therapy. I don't want to go too deep into it because it is definitely not my area of expertise at all. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it, knowing that there is a high value here, knowing that my wife was going to be going through this. I did a lot of research to make sure that we were getting the right stuff for her. And I think it's been a huge benefit, in my opinion. I know you don't have like a previous experience of it where you didn't have it and then you had it. But from what you thought this experience was going to be like,
I haven't noticed a single change from pre-surgery to post-surgery where I was utilizing the bioavailable, compatible hormones at all.
And you started estrogen and testosterone replacements the day of, or the day after.
The day after. And I haven't had one single menopause symptom or because
this girl sleeps like the Dickens. She gets 10 hours of sleep every night. No hot flashes.
No.
Brain fog, but she always had that before. She was a little blonde. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Shoot, you derailed me.
Brain fog. There it is. If you think of it, come back. All right. Signs and symptoms here. Quickly, I want to make sure I'm leaving at least 20 minutes here for us to go through this. As always, as predicted, I say 60 minutes. It really means like 75, 80. So hang tough with me. If you can't hang at the end, we'll have the recording out to you. All right. Hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, anxiety, weight gain, all that, etc. as we kind of work our way across. And then some of the other perimenopausal components. Quickly go.
I was just gonna say the only difference that I've noticed is that there is no up and down swing like there was with the cycle.
Gotcha. Very good. So every month you would feel emotion high, emotion low. Your body would change.
Yeah.
Now you feel more regulated across the board.
I feel like because I've always had a very good body fat percentage and very a good handle on that. My periods and my cycles have always been very easy. I've only really ever bit the kid's head off like the day before. And I knew patience is low. It's starting tomorrow. That was my only sign ever. But now I don't have that.
All right. These are a couple of the other articles. Again, every time I bring you this, I want to show you where I'm getting this information from. So feel free to reference any of the articles I put up on here. They're a little dry, but there's good information in here. I try to liven it up for you a little bit. One of my favorite ones, I think, was the resistance training for hot flashes, and that one on the left. Randomized controlled trial, actually a really cool study. Some of the lifts that they did and the implementation they had on there. They specifically worked 15 weeks and they utilized a time under tension and an EDT combo. So I'm going to show you both of those. The one in the middle, there's Helen's article that I showed you earlier, and then one other one with the postmenopausal recommendation and control trials. That was a pretty interesting one as well. But if you want more information, go and check those out. So the next 3 slides that I'm going to show you, information from these 3 specific studies, along with all the ones I've shown you. This is a collection of all information here. And the focus for this is for perimenopausal women, resistance training with free weights is a safe and effective strategy. You are going to see that time and time and time again, specifically with reducing hot flashes, because even though you are, quote unquote, pre-menopausal, you're entering the menopausal period, you can have symptoms of hot flashes, poor quality of sleep, reducing muscle mass, increasing body fat, loss of bone mass. You can have all those things as an early onset. It just depends on how active, how healthy you are entering this or not. It can assist in perimenopausal specific quality of life, meaning all those signs and symptoms we showed you earlier, it can drastically combat those as you kind of enter into the stage. The maximum hypertrophy / maintenance, because remember, you are still utilizing some testosterone, some estrogen, probably not a ton of testosterone at this point, very, very little, and tapering estrogen levels, but you can, if lifting appropriately, increase muscle mass, which to its core and definition is hypertrophy. If not, we're just going to maintain the muscle mass that we have, which would be great, okay? For this, let's say 10-year period, okay? Let's just call it 50 to 60 or 45 to 55, whatever it is. If we can just maintain muscle mass established to that point, that'd be amazing. Don't lose any muscle mass. And then, I'm not telling you to tell your clients to do this, but if they then decide I am going to exercise my right to do hormone replacement therapy, on the backside of this, you can now say, now let's pursue greater bone density, more muscle mass, because now you're working, you're cooking with all the stuff you need to make this recipe again. And for a while, that's all been removed. You're like, let's make cookies and chocolate chip cookies. And you're like, but no butter and no chocolate. And you're like, well, shit. I'm just going to kind of make like mushy bread. And then once I get the chocolate and the butter, okay, now we can make cookies again. But now we can make them even better, right? Now we can, and I'm not, not encouraging people to take these hormone replacement drugs, but if it's going to improve quality of life and it's going to assist in this and help people live longer, which all the research suggests that it does, I encourage it. So that's where, as much as I can read about this, I'm not going to tell you something with that much conviction. If there's any question to this that 50-50, I'm not telling everybody to get on Dianabol because you're going to live longer. Like, that's not the case, okay? All right, so with this goal, anywhere between 6 and 30 reps, okay? And even plus, if you look at Brad Schoenfeld's article here at the top, this is one of the coolest studies, and I would call groundbreaking study, because if you look at every book written prior to, when did he do this? 2012, I think. Prior to 2012, 2014, somewhere in there, there's rep schemes that go 4 to 8 hypertrophy, 8 to 12 strength, 15 plus endurance. We've all seen that, okay? What Brad did with his group here is they went through and they measured everybody's muscle mass. They were only doing reps of 6, maximal loads for sets of 6. And then when you got to 30, the other group, when they got to 30 reps, they couldn't do a 31st. Like, just as much as the guy that did 6 was like, 7, I can't do it. This person got to 30 and they couldn't do it. So it was the intensity of what they did. But instead of deadlifting 400 pounds for 6 reps, they could deadlift 150 pounds for 30. And they still got the same amount of hypertrophy. Now, the person lifting the heavier load was stronger, quote unquote, right? But this is a measurement of hypertrophy, the development of muscle mass, not power output, not strength, which is what we want. The more muscle mass, the longer you live, okay? Peter Attia, Andy Galpin, Dr. Line, Gabriel Line, and all the experts out there, their bottom line is the more muscle mass, the longer you live, the healthier you live, the happier you live, okay? So we need muscle mass if we're going to do that. So anywhere from 6 to 30, even a little bit more repetitions, 2 to 4 sets, somewhere in there, a very big volume window of 12 to 120, somewhere in there. You're at a point here where you can be really creative with programming and still hit the target, okay? Due to the higher presence of testosterone and estrogen levels, we can be more successful here. However, if you're lifting weight that requires 6, 8, 10 reps to be the maximal effort, you got to be careful, especially if they're a inexperienced lifter, not to damage them. Okay? So you need to be progressive, as we put in parentheses earlier, progressive with your load, and make sure we're not taking too big of jumps, because I can nurse their progression, baby step, and we continue to climb. But I could start taking leaps and bounds, and one is too far, and then broken vertebrae, ruptured disc, torn labrum, right? Like ruptured Achilles, like something like that happens. And now, dude, we're all the way back to where we started, if not worse, if they don't rehab and they don't believe in you and they're not coming back and you've lost a client and they've lost business and et cetera, right? They're out there telling everybody what a shit trainer you are. Like we don't want all that. So if we just continue to baby step them, we just keep climbing, right? How do you climb Everest? One step at a time. It's not leaps and bounds from peak to peak. And so that's really the approach here, is an early start, a healthy start, a consistent start that never stops. These are not diets that you go on. These are not exercise plans that you do for 8 weeks and you taper off of. Way of life. This is the new way of life, is that this is being implemented permanently. We do this forever until your last day. Okay, again, preaching to the choir. All right, here we go. The menopausal stage now. Resistance training with free weights is a safe and effective strategy. Weird. Didn't we just see that on the previous one? And here we go. Reduces hot flashes, quality of life, reduces in fat mass, reducing in fat mass. So that's a new addition now. Now we are going to see that the addition of resistance training will help burn more adipose tissue. We're going to assist in muscle mass maintenance and or growth, again, if choosing to utilize HRT. Bone density, muscle mass, etc. Maintaining and improving mental health. This is where we're going to start to see that really start to creep in now. Is in the stage of menopause and post-menopause, there was more research to suggest brain fog and cognitive, what did they call it? I forget what they called it, but basically your train of thought that you were able to maintain and keep and quickly recall, coordinate movement patterns, dual task, etc. Yeah, all of that. Well, it's cognitive impotence, but I didn't want to say that. So that's what it says in there, is the brain's inability to perform and to work at the expected level for this individual's. I know, I don't even like saying it. Okay, maximum hypertrophy and or maintenance. Again, here at this level, 6 to 12 reps max, 3 to 4 sets. Now our training volume, look at that window change, 18 to 48. The window change comes down. Does that mean that for the fully menopausal female, if we start doing sets of 30, she's not going to get great gains? That's not the case. What is ideal, okay, based on the research, it's 6 to 12 reps. Now, that's in a pure strength-based hypertrophy target. If we're looking at just getting a good high quality strength and conditioning workout in every day, anywhere from that 6 to 30 is going to be a blanket result across the board. But if we want to target it a little bit more, this is where we want to go a tiny bit heavier and maybe an extra set or two and start to work in some of those 6 to 12 rep ranges. I really like to do some EDT training, escalated density training, one superset cycle of this. I'll show you in just a minute. I like to do these and encourage my clients for the first 7 to 10 minutes to lift pretty hard during this nonstop and really push themselves. And that way we could look at this for like sets of 8 to 10 and it's just super challenging, but it's only going to be for 7 to 10 minutes, right? Then the rest of the workout, we can undulate load. But for that one, for that first 7 to 10 minutes, like I want to crush, okay? I want to absolutely go. And then after that, we can pull the reins a little bit and taper back. But if I could just target 2 lifts in every workout and really challenge those for that 6 to 12, and then everything else, I can, 12 to 30 rep it and have that more hurt kind of focus component, high intensity resistance training, then I think you'd have pretty good value with people there. Okay? And then I'm going to give you screen grabs here to take in just a second. Higher levels of volume are needed to maintain this muscle mass. Now, since we're not doing it via rep, it has to come via load. So with the 6 to 30 option, you can have lighter load and still equal a high volume. But in this case, if we're going to hit a higher volume, it's got to come from load. You can't exceed 12 reps, right? I mean, you can obviously, but if we're targeting this. And then the keynote here, muscle mass growth is unstable for menopausal women unless HRT is utilized. So that's where ideally I would love to say, like, no matter how hard we lift you, we're going to have a muscle stimulus. It's going to change. The body's going through some crazy stuff at this time, and we can't guarantee it. By a natural expectation, you would say, if we're putting stress through your body every week, 3 days a week for 30 minutes plus, that at least the bones would stay dense. As long as they're getting calcium and they're getting protein and they're getting the basics in their diet every day, you could at least say that. So I would say that it's pretty safe to say we can maintain bone density, if not, maybe even improve it. But muscle mass, that's where the hormonal levels change and fluctuate so much. It's really challenging we can never guarantee, but get as close to we can as saying guarantee a result. We just can't at this stage. Now, when things start to level out a little bit, post-menopause, resistance training with free weights is a safe and effective strategy. Crazy, okay? All three of those started exactly the same way. And you notice the results here as far as assisting hot flashes, etc. Here's maintaining pure muscle mass now. So establishing that muscle mass and maintaining, bone density maintaining, improving mental health for sure, okay? And then assisting in your postmenopausal or menopausal quality of life. We see that across the board. And now we're back into this hypertrophy / maintenance mode where we can get this 60 to 30 plus rep max, right? That 12 to 120 volume again. Higher levels again needed, as we kind of talked about previously. It's kind of that same perimenopausal instruction menu, but if we now ask, if the client is now telling us they are utilizing HRT, now our results, I feel like, can be more consistent because we're back to cooking with the butter and the chocolate, right? Like we're back to making this with the recipe of everything we had prior to. So if they're going to supplement that in, I think you're going to see greater success, and the research would suggest that. Again, we're not here to tell people to do that or not. I'm educating you on what to expect. If a client is not utilizing HRT, results post center menopause on stages 2 and 3 are going to be very difficult to even estimate, let alone maintain. Okay. But if they are utilizing, there's much higher quality of success and much higher opportunity to look at a plan and project it and say, we're being successful, steps 3, 4, 5. Look how much muscle mass we've gained. Look at your bone density that hasn't lost, which would be huge, right? If they could do a DEXA scan or at least do some type of electromagnetic, like an InBody or a bod pod or any of these other ones, they can at least scan and show their pure muscle mass, their adipose tissue, and then their bone density breakout, just weight-wise. If you can get to a body and be like, your body's made up of 18 pounds of bone, and after 12 months of training, it's still 18 pounds of bone, boom. But if they've gained 4 pounds in muscle mass and lost 4 pounds in adipose tissue, that's a huge success. But they didn't change on the scale one bit, right? But they're more muscular by 4 pounds, they're less fat by 4 pounds, and their bones didn't change. That's a huge win. But you wouldn't know that and be able to instruct that to somebody if you didn't have them stand on one of those things and get the measurements, right? That's where the challenge comes in. We're so close to buying one of these Hume scales that you can stand on and it's got the little handle you hold on to. $200 to $300, but I think it'll give us something consistent for our clients to look at every month, every couple of weeks. Some people do it daily to be able to check their density. I don't want to get that obsessed with it, but I think having something like that to score would be really beneficial, especially if you get them, at 35, 40, then entering stages 1, 2, and 3 and working all the way through. Man, you could imagine a case study like that. If you had a group of ladies, or at least one, that just went that whole 20-year window, right? 35 to 60, let's say, that 25-year window, and you got to chart all that, dude, that would be so cool. But I think that's where we're headed. I think things like that are happening right now. They're just in the process. For the longest time, we didn't know what the long-term effects of creatine were going to be. 35 years later, we know that unless you overdose on creatine, you're going to poo a lot. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of other side effects to this. That's where we're getting to with HRT, with the hormone replacement therapies. They're getting to that point now where they have long-term 20, 30. Remember the 90s, everybody, that was like 30 years ago. So that's a long time. That's a long time ago. I know it feels like just like a couple of years ago, but that's 30 years ago. So if you started doing estrogen tests on ladies in early or mid to late 1980s, early 1990s, you've got 35 years of research to say, yeah, they're good. They're all good. And that's what we want. Okay. We don't want to go like, we just tried this last Saturday. Everybody was fine. Like we want something that's tested and proven and standing time. That's why I bring this information to you. All right. Let's break through in the last 10 minutes or so. These are our last 3 slides. And then we're going to get into, the event we have coming up, just in a couple of weeks. And I encourage you, if if you like what you learned today, the experience we're going to have on November 9th, it's power-based and it's fall prevention-based. And we have everything covered from head to toe across the body. And it's going to be the coolest online experience. I'm almost jealous of, I'm going to be there. I almost want to go back and watch it online because it's going to be such a cool, we're doing such great work with this. And we have one of the best, engineers of video production. Yeah, our AV guy is amazing. He works at the Chopra Center, Deepak Chopra, all other these great in Vegas with MGM, and he's great. So we got him. He's coming to produce this for us, or Caesars, whatever the other one he did in Vegas, the Alien one, and then the one they just did in Florida. These are all big companies that he worked with. So this is going to be awesome. All right. So here's our HVRT, high velocity resistance training. Rep count 2 to 8, sets 3 to 6, load RPE, rate of perceived exertion, of 5 to 8. If you're a percentage person, that's 50% to 80%, okay, somewhere in there. This is on a 1 to 10 RPE scale, not the traditional 6 to 21 or whatever that is, okay? So 1 to 10 RPE scale. All right, because the load is lighter, it's not, somewhere with 5 and 6, building up to a 7 and 8. Because the load is lighter, tempo-wise, we should be able to move. Remember, eccentric is always listed first. That's the 0. And then the concentric is the second number. So 0 means as fast as possible, less than a second. And that is our focus here for, oops, that's a typo. That should be the other way around. Oh no, let me fix it. Here, we'll live on because I don't want you to have the wrong picture. Jeez, how could I do that? All right. Amateur hour over here. Okay. So it is my brain fog, or my menopause brain fog. Did it change? Go. Uh-oh.
Now you did it.
Now I did do it. Oh no. Yeah, don't do this to me. Okay. All right. So your HVRT, low load, 5 or a 6, eccentric phase, bringing the weight back down from overhead. Let's say we're doing cleans or snatches. Bring the weight back down 2 seconds. Controlled. Going up as fast as humanly possible, like as fast as you can. If it was a 8, 9, or a 10, it would be so heavy that you couldn't move it that fast. Eventually, with a more experienced lifter, we can get up into the 8s for HVRT. But in the beginning, you could even do a 3 or 4 for your clients to start off. Get, 3 sets of 8 with them doing single arm snatches. Dumbbell, that's why I put dumbbells on here and not barbell work. I think your dumbbell, your unilateral based lifting for older populations and smaller framed individuals, I feel like works a lot better than trying to manipulate big barbells. That's a whole nother discussion, but just for introduction wise, I think it's much easier to learn how to clean and snatch one implement in a unilateral approach. So, 1 dumbbell, single arm snatches, 5 or 6, 3, 4, 5, 6, somewhere around in there, moving it really fast on the up, eccentrically 2 seconds or so returning. 30 to 60 seconds, that's between the primary lift. So what you could do is do a snatch and then go do some split squats and then come back a minute and a half later and then do snatches again. Will you be able to work at a maximal effort? No, but we're not trying for maximal efforts in terms of actual load being moved. We're trying for maximal tempos being moved fast. With the weight being that low, we can move things really quickly, high velocity. We're moving at adequate load, 50, 60, 70% of our 1 rep maximums ideally. That's where our 5, 6, 7 RPE comes in. So you're moving a decent load rather quickly and then either supersetting or putting it in a cycle of lifts that you're going through, like a laundry list, right? To go through, that's going to give you an opportunity to rest certain musculatures and systems, but still have a cardiovascular response. We can get stronger, we can get more dynamic, we can challenge our heart and our lungs and improve our blood flow and our circulation. This is all going to help our cognitive stimulus, our balance, our coordination, etc. So just to kind of give you some lifts that I think are key HVRT lifts: clean snatches, a squat and a press. I think that Fit company that's crossed between 2 styles, they call it a thruster. Neutral grip dumbbells. Okay. You can squat and press right arm, squat and press left arm, or squat and press both, depending on how intense you want to make it. And then a hinge to a high pull, aka clean pulls or clean high pulls. You have your swings, push presses, step ups, bench press, etc. Now, if you want to learn more about that and its specific response to bone density, granted this is a talk about menopause, but older men's bodies are pretty similar as far as the research goes. and the effect of it to women's menopausal bodies going through. So that's where this article actually had some good carryover for me. And then this book here, Power Development, it specifically has a chapter in there written by a very bald, very bearded author. I think it's chapter 4, if I'm remembering correct, or 9. I get my books.
109.
It's on page 109. Thank you. Yes. And if you're coming to our event in a week and a half, we have a copy that I'm going to sign and raffle off to everybody. But specifically that chapter is power training for older adults. Now, you can plug in for females into that too, and this model works very well. I give you 3 different full, like mesocycle lifting programs to do in there, beginner, intermediate, advanced. And it's a great book otherwise. All these other great authors that come in, but that one chapter in particular is really good. And my presentation next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday is built around that chapter. So if you can join us online, if you want to learn about that, I'll be diving into that. Okay, here's eccentrics. Okay, I'm going to wrap up here in just a few minutes. Hang with me. I know we're running over just a little bit. Over-deliver. Remember when we give you the survey, I over-delivered. Eccentric training, deadlifts, goblet squats, stiff leg deadlifts, bench press. What do you see on all these? These are big, compound, complex movements, except the last 2, which are the primary auxiliary lifts, meaning the 2 that we utilize probably the most often, so they can handle eccentric focus. But you wouldn't want to do like eccentric calf raises, eccentric anterior tibs, eccentric wrist curls. Those musculatures are too small, too fragile, if you will, to do this time under tension and not have a really negative return. Eccentric training is awesome at tearing fiber and getting you strong. And in that same sentence, it's terribly efficient, because if you do too much of it or you lift too often this way, it causes a lot of damage, so you need more time to recover. People can hurt themselves, is my point. More cases of rhabdomyalgia from eccentric training in the last 2 years than in that cross style of fitness training that we mentioned earlier, where they were just blasting people out from the kind of the get-go and then people would adopt. This is kind of the reverse. We were working on moving things so slowly that people didn't really recognize that they were tearing their fibers so much. And so in return, if you just do a couple of sets, it gets you really strong. You recover, everything's fine. It's actually a really safe way to lift. But if you start doing sets of 100 and you're chipping and you're, supersetting or Tabataing or whatever you're doing at these high intensities, but then you're eccentrically loading those and going slow with those super high rep counts, it can cause a lot of damage. So you got to just be really careful with this when you implement it. Essentials of Eccentric Training there by Len Kravitz. Len Kravitz is the head instructor at New Mexico, or at least was, and Jonathan Mike, who's one of our keynotes coming this weekend, trained directly with him, did his thesis with him. He's our eccentric guy and kind of looks at it more of a older adult sport performance. He's going to be doing a couple of talks for us with that, so we're excited to have him. All right, rep counts, when you look at the volume, 4 to 12s, so we get a little higher on volume reps. 2 to 4 sets. Load, look at our load goes up, 7 to an 8. So we do want, this is of the 3 styles of training, this is the heaviest one that you would want to manipulate, but and then implement with your clients. But again, in a progressive fashion, they've got to be able to ascend into this load. So start with 5s and 6s and kind of build your way up. Tempos, eccentric, 3, 2, 1, concentric 1. For your little bit more experienced clients, maybe do a 4 to 1. I had a 4-1-1 on here, which is information, which is if you if you want to do a 4-second negative with a 1-second pause and then a 4-second concentric, you could always do that. Holding in the lockouts doesn't do a whole lot. It does good for joint stability, but that's about it. Holding at deep points of flexion, that's where a lot of stress, good stress, is placed on the joints. So it's not a bad idea to do a 3-2-1, pause for 1, and then a 1-second concentric. But think about the load that you would have to lift to successfully do that for 8 reps or 10 reps. You could do it for the first 4 or 5. If it's too heavy of a weight, you do it for 4 or 5, and then it turns into like 2-1, 2-1, and then it turns into 1, 2, 3, because you're struggling so hard to push it back up. So load-wise, might have to go a tiny bit lower, but as far as perceived effort, it's a 7 or 8. Do you understand me on that? Like, this is a much more challenging. It's really hard to lift slower. So as far as the load goes, you might have to back off a little in the beginning, but then as you start learning how to control this, you're going to get really strong and you'll be able to load this up pretty well. A little more recovery time, 60 to 90 seconds. Here's EDT, escalated density training. You'll see it in the book title there on the right. Muscle Logic by Charles Staley. escalating density training, if you need that, I should have put that at the top up here, EDT training. These are big compound lifts that you are basically going to superset with a lighter load, lighter intensity, but you're not going to stop. Okay. And this is what I was talking about earlier. This is one of my favorite styles of training. And I will do this every other week, 2 workouts. And then I do my regular stuff for 4 or 5 workouts. And then I do 2 like this. And then I do 4 off. And so I like to kind of cycle it through because it's such an efficient way to train, but it's hard. Okay. It's really hard. So here's the example. We're going to do deadlifts, which is a primarily glute, hamstring, low back focus lift. And you're going to superset that with goblet squats, which are more vertical, more upright. So it's a lot of quadricep. So if you look at both of those, you're going ham, glute, hip flexor, quad, ham, glute, hip flexor, quad. And I'm going to just superset those agonist, antagonist, almost exact opposites, right? Of what we want. I'm going to superset those back and forth anywhere from like 8 to 10 reps. So let's say we're going to do 10 every time. 10 deadlifts, 10 goblet squats. For 7 minutes, AMRAP, as many rounds as possible, I'm just going to go and I'm going to do 10 deadlifts, 10 goblets, 10 deadlifts, 10 goblets. With an RPE of somewhere around a 5 or a 6. My tempo 2 to 1 or 1 to 1. I want to move this. In recovery, when I put minimal, we have one in house called Ready Go. That means like the second you're ready, go. As soon as you get there, you grab the handles. If you're ready, go. I don't care if you're tired. That's part of this. But if you're ready, if you can go, go. And so for 7 minutes, they could get 4 rounds, 8 rounds, 12 rounds. It doesn't matter to me. Is that they're constantly going. And that's the escalating component to this is you're slowly layering on more stress, more stress, more stress, but the load is not nearly heavy enough for the first 10 and the second 10, the first set of each one, to be challenging enough on its own. You would kind of look at that and go, dude, that was 50% of what I can handle. This is easy. But if I don't give you a break and we just keep hitting agonist, antagonist, think of stretching a rubber band with my left hand and then my right hand and then the left hand and then the right hand. I'm going to stress those exact opposite equal reactions here in that musculature. Not exact, but you get my point. The movement patterns are as close as we can to targeting opposites to where those compounding movements back and forth will now have this stimulus of equal growth, but escalating growth. And so it's kind of a way to like chipper a targeted superset, if you will, and you pack it into a small window. This works exceptionally well. Next one, you could do a stiff leg deadlift and a split squat. So again, we're targeting high hamstring and then quads, high hamstring and then quads. Bench press, seated row, horizontal push, horizontal pull, right? Overhead press, vertical push, lat pull down, vertical pull. You could do overhead press with a high pull if you wanted to. Same things, right? You just want to work agonist, antagonist, opposites. If you really wanted to do a tough one here, bicep, tricep could probably handle that as well. And they give you some other examples. I gave you in the picture there next to the book, some other examples of how these compounding movements, opposite and equals there, can kind of combine and complement each other in this style of training. You can pursue pretty equal muscle growth with a very similar stimulus that is going to be a pretty safe way to get strong in a really effective way. That's why I like this one and why I gave it to you last. I think this is one of the best tools to utilize with your perimenopausal women and your postmenopausal women. I think your HVRT is your best one for your menopausal women. So EDT, stages 1 and 3, and then HVRT for stages 2. Doesn't mean that the other ones aren't going to work for everybody else. All these will produce good results, but which ones do you think will give you like just a little bit more specific? I think the EDT training at least once a week would be really good, if not more. Okay. All right. Wrapping things up here. November 9th, not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday. I think we have like 7 or 8 spots left for in-house. In-house, you have hands-on learning experience. You get to hang with us the whole day. We're going to give you actionable stuff you can utilize right away. You get an event t-shirt. You get lunch in-house, tons of grab bags. If you go to my Instagram live, Keegan and I did a video yesterday. We walked you through this, but then we took you in the back and we showed you a tour of our house. But also the back room has all of our prizes and everything. And that's only like 3/4 of it. We have more coming. So we're going to have all kinds of cool stuff for everybody to come in. And there's only 50 people in-house, which means it's going to be a very personable experience, which is what we want and why we limit it. Online, as many people as we can have, and as we talked about, my brother-in-law Renee will be here to do all of our engineering on the virtual side. It's going to be awesome. I will kick things off. I'm going to kind of dive into 5 research studies on how to train the older adult and get them strong rather efficiently. These do jump all over a little bit. It doesn't flow like step 1, step 2. It's 5 different strategies that we utilize now that you can kind of funnel into one approach. Lisa McLean's going to be here. So's Dan McLean, our physical therapist couple that we love. Lisa's doing vestibular training, balance, stability. Dan's going to be doing some staying in the game, power, and fall prevention for aging athletes. Jonathan Mike is going to do his first talk on power and rotation for older adults lecture in the morning. He comes back after lunch and does a whole hands-on component to us. John Bauer from ISSA will be here, and he's going to do a wearable talk talking about watches and halos and auras and Garmin's and whatever else, any of the wearable attachments and whatnot that you can use for tracking your performance and your daily fitness endeavors. He's going to give us a whole report on that, which is going to be cool. We're going to do a group engagement kind of communication mock programming thing I'll lead you through. And then our anchor is Greg Johnson. He's going to do power training for the older adult athlete focused on pickleball, tennis, and golf. So our heavy rotation style of trainings that he's going to take us through. So we would love to have you come and join us. If you head over to trainingtheolderadult.com. You can register there either online or get one of those last couple spots in person. We just started doing some newer content for people only signed up for our newsletter. So if you're not currently signed up for the newsletter, head over to the website. As soon as you punch it in there, it'll be the first thing that pops up. You can sign up for that. And we've got some select pieces of YouTube content and maybe in the future some handouts and such that we want to do just for our newsletter, our follower folks there. And then next level in is our TOA Select folks. They get access to all the other good stuff that comes up after that.
And by joining our newsletter right now, you can download the instantly it pops up, downloaded, updated Sarcopenia screen.
Ooh, our new Sarcopenia screen. Thank you. Yeah, we just made this. Like, I haven't even presented it out to anybody, and you can get it right now. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, like Keegan said, head over there, get that, and you get the immediate upload of our new Sarcopenia screen, which, again, not many people have seen. My email address right there, robertlinkle@gmail. I'm happy to stay and answer questions. I appreciate all of you staying. I know we ran over a bit, but I appreciate you staying. Key, I'm going to turn it over to you for questions if we have any in the chat or in the Q&A. And if you need to head out, thank you all so much. I always say that I can't give you back. I can give you back your time or or I can give you back your money or a product, but I can't give you back your time. Screw up my own saying. But I really appreciate you being here and spending time with me. And I hope you got some really good things to take away and implement with your people. So thank you very much. I appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar and or in person. And now let's throw it over to Q&A. What do we got?
I only have the one question, which is give an example of a trunk flexion based exercise that would be avoided. Yeah,
that one, there was the common misconception on, what we should do and shouldn't do. And then it kind of went down into like high impact. And then it said trunk flexion exercises. So by that, we primarily mean excessively loaded trunk flexion. So if you're deadlifting with a round spine or too deep, or your butt's tucked, your butt winking, etc., your knees are valgously collapsing, anything that's going to stress potential bone joint exposures, meaning you could crack and break and damage bone because you're not in good alignment, in that flex position is just making you so much more vulnerable to injury. So that, along with, excessive sit-ups, crunches, leg lifts, anything that's going to, produce a lot of like abdominal flexion base is only going to cause more damage for your lower back too.
So would a deadlift with a proper back that's not curved?
Yeah, if you're in good back alignment, your knees are in proper alignment, you're not butt winking, the load is appropriate, and they can maintain that through the entire set, you're good to go. So that flexion position is fine.
So visually standing up, flexion, you're talking about trunk flexion, meaning rounding over.
Yeah, kyphotic shoulder blades rounded over, forward head, butt tucked, etc. Yeah.
That's all I just wanted to.
All right, that's it. Any other questions?
Yeah, we do have somebody who's requesting some information on HRT.
Okay, all right. If you, Kelly,
capture that.
If you have, you got it? Okay, cool. Yeah, Kelly, I'll send you to Katie Coles and Stephanie Poplinsky. I'll send you both of their links so you can check them out. All right, everybody. I don't see any other questions up in there. Also would like info. Okay, excellent. Yeah, if you would all do us a favor, Keeg, will you put in your email address? And Keeg's throwing that in there now.
If that email, I didn't get the other email grabbed.
If you will all email Keegan, I will send her the the addresses of the ladies.
They get an email in 3 hours that has the recording.
The recording?
I'll
We'll
throw
put it in there. Yeah. Okay. So we'll just send it to everybody. Good idea. We'll send it to everybody, and we'll put it in the link. When you're going to get one in a little bit that says the recording's now available, we'll have the PDF of today connected in there as well, and we'll have the links to both of those ladies. So if you want more information, Katie Coles for sure is. I don't know if anyone's more educated and versed on that right now than her. She is by far kind of the industry leading expert on this and has done a ton of research, works with a whole bunch of folks. So she's the one to reach out to for sure if you want more information on that. All right, team, I've kept you long enough. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you all. As always, be safe, lift well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And until next time, please continue to fight your good fight against sarcopenia. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.